Hey, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to do a check. I'll give people just a couple minutes to jump on. I know we're expecting a few more to get on, and then we'll get started. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. I know we have a lot to cover today. I want to welcome everybody first to our Judicial Candidate Forum. Just as a reminder, we would ask that you mute your microphones. I see that most of you have, but also keep your cameras on during the event. The reason we've asked for everyone to keep their cameras on is so that our candidates are not looking out at a sea of empty black boxes. It really helps for them to feel engaged in this process. when people have their cameras on. So if you're able, we just ask that you turn your cameras on. By way of
Okay, you don't have
introduction,
your team. Well, take the mute off. Put us on mute, please.
see, good reminder, put yourselves on mute. Thanks, guys. By way of introduction, my name is Courtney Umberger. I am this year's program chair for the Tampa Bay Trial Lawyers Association, and also the person responsible for all of those emails you've been getting lately. So apologies on that front. Just a little bit about the Tampa Bay Trial Lawyers Association. For those who may not be familiar, we are an organization 400 strong of lawyers striving for justice on behalf of injured individuals throughout Florida, working to uphold and improve the adversary system, to assure that the courts are kept open and accessible to every person, and that the right to trial by jury is protected, while aiming to uphold the honor and dignity of the profession of law. One of the organization's goals is to encourage public awareness and understanding of the adversary system, which obviously includes our judges. According to the Florida Bar's The Votes in Your Court website, however, only 47% of Florida voters feel confident about judicial elections and judicial merit retention. That's why I'm very pleased today to be introducing you to the candidates themselves running for election and our upcoming judicial races. So I want to introduce from running for the 10th Circuit, Group 23, we have Lakeisha Latoya Babers and Chris Spath. For the 10th Circuit, Group 24, we have Andrea DeMichael and Candace Dixon. For the 13th Judicial Circuit, Group 7, we have Louis Aguila and Sarah Peacock. And for the 13th Judicial Circuit, Group 13, we have Nina McGuckin Alvarez and Jim Wimsott. I also want to introduce and thank our co-sponsors for today's event. First, the Trial and Litigation section of the Hillsborough County Bar Association. And I also want to thank the League of Women Voters. Specifically, we have the following chapters who are involved today: the Hillsborough and Pasco Counties chapter, the Polk County chapter, North Pinellas County chapter, and the St. Petersburg area chapter. I have the pleasure of introducing today Teresa Potter, who is co-president of the League of Women Voters Hillsborough and Pasco Counties chapter. Before our candidates get started, Teresa is going to give us some important information, voting information we need before casting our ballots in August. So I'm going to turn it over to Teresa and let you guys know what you need to know before August.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to quickly cover 5 important pieces of information about the August election. Many of you on here may know them, but it's important to share widely because a lot of people in our communities do not. And then I'm going to drop a lot of this information in the chat so that you don't have to remember it and write it down. So first is the dates and deadlines. So I think everybody on here probably knows that the August election is going to be on August 18th. It's important to know that the deadline to register and to change your party for that is 29 days before the election, which is July 20th. Also, the deadline to request your vote by mail ballot is August 6th. I'm going to drop in the chat the early voting dates for that election because they vary by the 4 counties involved in these elections. And I'm also going to drop in the chat our website that shows all of that. So as we get more information, some of them have not yet announced their early voting date, or some of them haven't announced their times. As we get it, we'll add it to that website. Second, many of you on here know that this is a closed primary state. A lot of people believe that that means that you can only vote in August if you're affiliated with a party. So it's important to note that for our partisan elections on August 18th, that's true. The party that you're in, you can only vote for the candidates of that party. But all of our judicial candidates on here today and all of our school board candidates are nonpartisan races. And so it's important to share the word widely that everybody who is a registered voter can vote on August 18th. And third, it's important to be aware that vote by mail ballots expire in Florida after every general election. So the Supervisor of Elections has sent out a letter to everybody who voted by mail in the last general election and has not yet renewed it. But if somebody has changed their address or it isn't aware that that came in and they don't return it. It's a really important, especially important this year, that you renew the vote by mail early because the fourth important piece of information is that a law that went into effect in July of 2024 related to our driver's licenses can sometimes affect our ability to renew our vote by mail. So when that law went into effect, our driver's license, when we renew them, they now get a new driver's license number. And when you do that now, if you renewed it in the last year, and you do it online, there's a box that you can check that says, do you want to update your voter registration? If you do it in person, they're going to ask you, do you want to renew your voter registration? Some of the people that we've talked to in the community say, I would typically say, no, I don't want to update my voter registration. Everything on there is accurate. But if you don't check that box or tell them, yes, you want to update your voter registration, then your new driver's license number is not synced with your voter registration. And when you go online to renew your vote by mail, it won't let you do it. So there's a couple of ways to easily fix that if you didn't check that box or tell them, or in the very beginning, the first year of this law going into effect, that box wasn't available. So if anybody has trouble renewing their vote by mail, they can call their local supervisor of elections. They can fix that right in that one phone call, and they can request their vote by mail in that one phone call. For people who prefer not to pick up the phone and call, they can also go to the website where you can register to vote in Florida, which is also on our website, registertovoteflorida.com, or I'm sorry, registertovoteflorida.gov. And if you choose to request a new voter registration card, going through that process will automatically synchronize your voter registration with that new driver's license number. So it's a quick and easy way to get that fixed. And lastly, the important piece of information is that the League of Women Voters maintains a website to inform voters about everything that's going to be on their ballot, and that's vote411.org. For the candidates that are on here, that means that within the next 7 days, you're going to be receiving an invitation email from us with questions, asking you questions about your race, and with a unique link that you click on, and your responses go directly to the website. We don't edit information that comes into us from candidates. We're a nonpartisan organization. We don't oppose or endorse candidates, and that information comes directly from you. For everyone else, when you go to vote411.org, you put in your address. It's going to pull up everything that's on your ballot. All those answers from candidates will be there, as well as anything. If you have a ballot measure in your area, like we will in Hillsborough, the information on those ballot measures will be there, letting you know what it means if you vote yes and what it means if you vote no. And that information to the questions to the candidates will go out next week. For all our voters, that information will go live on July 10th. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Teresa. And I will just again mention vote411.org is a great resource for the upcoming elections. It's kind of a one-stop shop. You're able to see everything that's on your personal ballot, as well as click on candidates. So I would just highly recommend, if you haven't visited that website, that you give it a try. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's panel, and that's Alan Wagner. He's a former president of the Tampa Bay Trial Lawyers Association, current board member, and a distinguished civil trial lawyer. Before I turn it over to Alan, I do want to let everyone know, if you have any questions for our candidates today, you can submit your questions through the chat feature. You can find the chat button on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. If your question is directed to a specific candidate or race, rather than the entire panel as a whole, go ahead and identify that in your question. Please note that due to certain restrictions by which judicial candidates are bound, that Alan will have full discretion with respect to the questions that are ultimately posed to the candidates. And so now, without further ado, I'm going to stop talking, which I'm sure you guys are thrilled about, and I'm going to turn it over to Alan to get it started with our judicial candidates.
Thank you, Courtney, and welcome everyone, both those visitors to TBTLA and the TBTLA members themselves. Um, we've done this now for a few years, and I always remind people that as lawyers, you are in a unique position to influence and affect uh, judicial races. If for years and years, as the election creeps up on me, people start grabbing me, and I start getting emails from friends or people I haven't talked with in ages who get their sample ballots, and they have no clue who these people are, and so they ask a lawyer, who should I vote for? And I can assure you that that's true even as you age. My father, Bill Wagner, who many of you know, is now 93 years old. He's in a semi-assisted living place called Allegro nearby, and the people at Allegro have already started stopping him in the hall to find out who the heck they should vote for. And of course, his answer is, I don't know, call my son. So many of you will have that experience, and I'm glad that you have this opportunity today to hear directly from the candidates. For the candidates, this is not Chris Matthew hardball, or at least it won't be entirely so. Um, I'll ask some questions after each of you have a short period of time to tell us a little bit about yourself. You may think that the candidates going last have a unique advantage because they're going to hear all the questions. To some extent, that's true, but I've got a bunch of questions that are different for everybody, so don't get too comfortable. And with that, Ms. And I'm already going to screw up your name. Is it Babbers or Babers? Ms. Babers? Lakeisha Latoya Babers? Let's see. I know I saw her. Meg, do you see it, Ms. Babers?
I cannot. I'm looking as well. Give me one
Oh,
second.
there it is. I found her. She's on mute. Okay. Well, let's do this. We've
My apologies, Mr. Allen. When you called my name, which you did get correctly, um,
perfect.
my system immediately crashed. So I had to go out and come back in. So my apologies for that. But my name is Lakeisha Babers. I am a candidate for seat 23 in the 10th Judicial Circuit. I've been an attorney for the last 20 years, practicing in this very circuit in Polk Highlands and Hardy County. I have experience in pretty much every area that a circuit court judge handles. I've done family law, I've done probate, I've done estate planning, I've done criminal. I've pretty much touched all of it, including regular suits where one person is suing another person. I'm admitted to the Middle and Southern District Federal Courts of Florida, and I'm looking forward to hopefully being elected to the bench in August. It is my desire that when someone comes in my courtroom, that everybody feels like they had their day in court and that their voices were heard. I don't feel that justice should depend on what you look like or what you have, or even whether or not you have a private attorney versus you're representing yourself or you have a public defender. Justice is supposed to be blind, and it is my desire to be on the bench and enact that, so that only thing that I have and what I judge from is the evidence that's put forth in front of me.
Wonderful. Let me ask you, because and let me compliment all the candidates this year. Everyone's done an incredibly good job of cleaning their social media presence, so I couldn't dig up much dirt on anybody. But I noticed from yours, Ms. Babers, that you've been a teacher in some respects to some things. Tell us about that a little bit.
Noticed in our communities that a lot of the times our children's first interaction with the legal system is a negative one. Either they've got arrested or someone close to them have had an arrest, or they're involved in the dependency system. So I went into the classrooms to see if I could help change that and to also educate them on what our processes actually look like. It also worked so that we're going to need another generation of attorneys to step up at some point to let them know that, hey, just because you're from a low income home or you went to this school or quite frankly that you're from Polk Highlands or Hardy County, because people do tend to look down on us because we are some of the smaller, more country counties, that hey, you can still do this. I opened Lake Regions Law Academy, and then I taught total time 3 years at the high school level and 4 years at the middle school level. I didn't think that I was going to love middle school as much as I did, but I did. And I actually taught during the COVID school year. I did continue to practice throughout the time that I was teaching so that I was working full time in the education system during the day. And then when I got off, I was doing cases for my clients, usually family law or bankruptcies. If I needed to do a hearing, I would basically take time off, do a partial day that day, and then go back in the classroom. I think that it helped because a lot of my students have been reaching out, or I've noticed that a lot of them have not gotten into some of the trouble that they may have gotten into otherwise. But I think it's important that all of the kids understand that every interaction with the legal system doesn't have to be a negative one. Nobody has to be getting divorced. Nobody has to have died. You don't have to have a criminal case going on. You don't have to be risking losing your family. Sometimes it may be that, hey, you're there because you wanted to observe what's happening. I'm actually currently in the process of trying to get involved with the teen court program here because I used to do it in law school. And when I first moved back to Polk, they didn't have the program quite yet. So now that I know that it's there and I have some time, I'm actually in the process of getting involved with that. But I think that our next generations that are coming up are capable of a lot more than we've given them credit for. They just need a little bit of guidance.
Thank you. You mentioned you had some experience in a lot of different areas. Um, Describe your practice over the last, say, 5 years. What percentage of time are you spending in what areas of the law?
The last 5 years, I would say I've probably spent about 60% in family law cases. So doing divorces, child custody, paternity, child support, and dependency cases. And probably about 35% in bankruptcies. And then or helping someone repair their credit. And then the remaining 5 would be estate planning and probate.
Okay. Do you, I know the family law is typically tried to judges. Um, do you have any experience as a trial lawyer with juries?
I do. When I originally started, I first did an internship with the PD's office, which is the public defender's office. And then when I graduated that December, took the February bar, picked up my own bar number that April, and started at the public defender's office that July. So I had the opportunity as a criminal attorney doing criminal defense to pick up jury trials. So there, I got to pick multiple juries. I got to actually be the person handling the cases. I did second chair a few cases for other attorneys when they needed someone else in with them, either because they needed another set of eyes and ears or they needed someone to help with their clients. So I did have some second chair experience, but the majority of my trials were done on my own. The bulk of my jury trials were actually in county court. They were not felonies. And the majority of my felony cases, actually, the majority of my cases as a whole, I'm usually able to find an agreement that works for my clients. And so most people, if they can get what they want, are happy to have their cases resolved both quicker and usually cheaper. So I didn't have to pick very many juries, but I did have that opportunity.
Well, you've seen the Polk County court system for the last 20 years or so, and you've seen it develop through COVID and new technologies and the like. Um, is there anything that you can tell us that is current practice at in the court system that if you were a judge, you would change or want to see done differently?
I think I would like to see one more opportunities for diversionary programs. I would like to see more opportunities where people actually get educated or assistance so that we don't have so many people that are coming back through for the exact same things, especially in our dependency area. We have so many children that they're removed from their parents and then they come right back through the system themselves as parents and they're in danger of losing their children. So I think that although we are addressing what brought them in, I don't think that we're doing anything to try to ensure that they don't come back. So I would like to see some either education or programs that, or even just some requirements into whatever programs that we have that, hey, while we have you and we have your attention, do this so that there is a chance that you don't come back.
How did you decide to become a lawyer, and what do you like about it?
I decided to become a lawyer in elementary school. I'm not entirely sure how that worked. I declared in like second or third grade that I was going to be an attorney, and then I did it. For me, I enjoy the opportunity to help other people, and I enjoy the opportunity to be part of the change because I don't typically see things the way everybody else does. So that's why I was successful in getting as many agreements as I have, because usually I'm willing to look outside the box to try to find a solution that works for everybody. And so I think that that has helped make a difference for some people because sometimes the usual doesn't work for whatever reason. And then it also helps that there's a saying that attorneys don't math. I math. My undergrad is in computer science, so I can write computer programs. Then I got a law degree, and then I have a degree in project management. So the combination is when I look at a problem, I look at the full problem. So even as a criminal defense attorney, I didn't just prepare my case, I prepared the state's case as well. Because in order for me to know what I need to do from my side, I need to see what their side looked like. And I did the same thing for my family law cases. I look at, okay, this is what we have, this is what the law says. Okay, this is what the other person would need to do, and this is what you need to do in order to get what you want. So I kind of work through all of the angles and not just the one that's necessarily beneficial to my clients. So my clients are generally told, I'm going to give you your worst case scenario because I don't ever want you to say that no one told you. I'm going to shoot for your best case, but I can't make any guarantees. So you need to know everything that is involved because at the end of the day, as the attorney, I'm not the one that's risking anything. Regardless of what the outcomes are, I walk out, my life isn't affected or changed, but theirs are. So they need all the information that I can get them on the level that they can understand it so that they can make the best decisions that they can for themselves.
You have mostly a room full of lawyers here today. Is there anything, I know running for a judge is kind of a pain in the you know what, because you got to go and talk to a lot of people out there who don't know what the law is. But is there anything that you want to tell a room full of lawyers about why you would be a good judge?
I don't hold you responsible for your client's behaviors. But beyond that, I think I would be a good judge because, for example, when I was a criminal attorney, there wasn't necessarily a lot of judges that I was comfortable playing my client straight up to. That I thought that, hey, my client got a good chance of not being nailed over the head. And so I want to be a judge that, regardless of which person in the fight you have, you can trust that I'm going to still listen to what you say, that I haven't already made up my mind before you opened your mouth, or that I didn't look at your client and immediately make a decision based on what your client looked like that day. That I'm actually going to take the things that you present to me and weigh them out to come out with the solution and not just, oh, well, I'm just going to dismiss this side because it doesn't fit the image that I want to have, but I'm going to take everything that's put in front of me into consideration. But I am going to apply what the law says. You may not like it, but I think at the end of the day, you would still respect it.
I appreciate your time today. I don't see any questions in the chat. So we'll toss the ball over to Mr. Spath. Mr. Spath,
Good afternoon.
there we go. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So about myself, I've been practicing 17 years, primarily in Polk County. Some of it branched into Hillsborough and Pasco County as well through my last probably 11 years at the firm I was at. You do a little bit more outside. We're a branch of the Tampa office is where I was situated at, but my office was in Lakeland on South Florida. So Polk, Highlands, and Hardy, I've been practicing in front of for pretty much, I say, the last 15 years. So I started off as a probate attorney. I did some collections work as well. That was my first job straight out of law school. Transitioned over to the state attorney's office here in the 10th Circuit. Worked my way up to become a felony division chief. As a felony division chief, you handle four we call them line attorneys that handles you oversee their caseload and how they handle their cases, and you assign their cases, but you primarily deal with the heavier cases that come through the office. We used to call them ledger cases because the Lakeland Ledger was always the ones that would pick up the cases that I would be handling. And so as a division chief, you control what happens in your division, who is getting what cases, and ultimately you're responsible for the outcomes of those cases at the state attorney's office. I worked under Jerry Hill. He's the one that hired me, and then Brian Haas took over for Mr. Hill, and I worked for Mr. Haas for quite some time. From there, I left and I transitioned to go into the civil sector, where that's where I've been the last 11 years, doing complex civil litigation. I recognize some friendly faces on the chat here today. So just doing trial work as a civil attorney for the last 11 years through a firm, and you probably groan when you hear it, but Morgan & Morgan is where I've been at. And I recently just left them in February, I guess end of January, beginning of February, to pursue this career here. So I have my own practice now, but primarily out here campaigning and hoping to get elected on this side of it. So that's kind of my legal career and what brings me to sit in front of you guys here today.
Let me ask you some, is Jennifer Spath your wife?
Yes.
I'm poking around on your site and found her and thought, I wonder if that's his spouse. She's with Gray Robinson. How do you manage to butt heads as a Morgan & Morgan lawyer and a Gray Robinson person over there? And tell us why we plaintiff lawyers shouldn't be worried that you're getting spoken to in your ear by a Gray Robinson lawyer.
Yeah, so and she recently just left, I believe maybe 2 weeks now. She is at another defense firm, which is Campbell, Trone, Tamayo, and Aranda. So still doing defense work on that side. Two things. We don't bring our work home. The last thing I want to do when I get home is talk about what I did at work all day. So you don't bring your work home with you. That's always a rule. We kind of leave it at the door. Outside of that, one of my best stories I think I have is while she was at Gray Robinson, they started doing some Walmart premise work, and I was doing Walmart plaintiff work. And so I had 2 or 3 clients, and they would refuse to handle or give her any of those cases because I was on the other side. And I was like, look, I'm not going to be taking money out of my own pocket, and I'm 100% sure she is not going to be sacrificing or jeopardizing her client's integrity. So we could literally try this case against each other because what I settle or what I have a case, it matters for my client specifically, and I'm going to do what's right regardless of who's in my ear, regardless of who's telling me what needs to be done. I'm going to do what I feel should be done to zealously represent my client. So
it looks like, if I'm reading your biography correctly, it's about half your career you've been in the criminal side of things and about half in the civil, maybe a little more towards the civil. Do you have a preference? And as a judge, would you want to be on the criminal side or the civil side?
So I guess, yeah, so it's been probably 11 years on the civil side now and maybe 5, give or take. So I'm leaning heavily on the civil side of things. I feel that I could be more beneficial to the judiciary here in the 10th Circuit on the civil side. I have at least probably 25 jury trials on the civil side of things that I can bring that knowledge to. So the criminal side, it is the more interesting side, just with what you deal with, what you see, the types of cases that come up tend to be more intriguing, I think, than some of our civil cases. Our civil cases based a lot on, you know, auto accidents, slip and falls, dog bite cases, and the things that we've seen. You know, there's all other complex litigation, tobacco litigation, asbestos, things like that. But I bring this knowledge and working understanding of the rules of civil that I've done the last 11 plus years into it. And from a trial attorney standpoint, I think is the biggest aspect of it. You know, I never ever want to disparage anybody that's currently on the bench, but I have been in front of and actually worked with, whether it be at the state or whether it be through trial work, with most of the circuit judiciary here in the 10th. And so, you know, doing trial work with them, you can kind of start to see, oh, I really like how this judge manages this type of docket and how they move their cases and things like that. So I think I lean heavily maybe towards the civil just because I've done it in the last 11 years.
If you're sitting there as a judge and with your experience in Polk County, um, what ways do you see you running a courtroom that may differ from some of the other ways that other judges do? How do you see structurally you running the courtroom as you want to?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to that, it's case management is always how do you move these cases efficiently and effectively without jeopardizing anybody's due process. That's you know that always falls back on that. And so with that being under the gun and being with all of these judges, you can kind of get an idea of when somebody's just being dilatory for no reason versus somebody has this good faith need to continue a case. There are so many times we would go to pretrials and things like that here in Polk County, and you would hear them being like, "Well, I have a cruise scheduled for such and such a date, and therefore I can't try this case on week one, but can I do week two?" And there were certain judges that would allow that case to get pushed down and kicked down the road. And there are other judges that are like, look, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to tell you, you're gonna have to reschedule your cruise. And it's a balancing act as to when it's important, when it's imperative to push this case forward. I had a case, and I think it was with my wife's firm before she got there, but that case was going on 6 years, and we had been set for about six different pretrials. And at some point in time, we have to go to trial on this case. And I think it finally went to trial here in February, but I had already left the firm, but finally got to go to the dance. But the worst position is to always get ready to be number two in a case and not go and things like that. So with that, it's that efficiency of how you move your cases when you hold people's feet to the fire and when you don't. And having been in front of it for the last 17 years as a trial attorney, you tend to know when it's serious and when it's not.
You've been with Morgan & Morgan for a long time. While there, did you learn anything about defendants or insurance companies that surprised you?
Yeah, I've learned personally just on the defense side of things is everybody has a job and everybody's trying to do their job. And so you can't take it personally, whether somebody's making a what I would consider a bad offer. Let's talk about it. Why are you making me this offer? Why are we going to trial on this case? The biggest thing that I think I learned dealing with the defense side of things is why they're doing things, right? And then you can talk to your client more educated about it and say, look, they're not giving you a hard time. This is their set of cards that they're playing with, and here's ours. If we don't agree at the end of the day, that's what a jury trial is for, is because we are, vastly far apart. And so you learn just dealing with defense attorneys, you learn who is reasonable, who is going to like I said, I've seen a couple friendly faces that I've dealt with on the plaintiff side that were defense attorneys on that side, and you get a really really good understanding of where they're coming from, but ultimately how to be like, hey, look, I don't agree with that, and here's my side, and then we can have a good conversation about it. I think is the biggest perspective of it.
In being a lawyer, are there aspects of being a lawyer that you don't particularly like?
Sure. Sometimes it does, you take it to heart. One of the cases that I think this is on the criminal side of things, but one of the cases that I always dreaded having to try. I had a jury trial involving a child sex crime, and it was the worst case when the jury went out because I've done everything that I can do, and you hope the jury comes back in your favor. And and they when they leave that room, it was so hard to talk to the parents, to talk to the living victim and be like, look, we've done everything. Now it's in their hands. And so that part of it, that the always the unknown of what happens next with the jury, it weighs on you. And in that case particularly, I tried two of them, and then I said, went to Mr. Haas at the time, and I was like, I don't know that I would like to do child crimes anymore. I think I am better suited for homicides and drug trafficking and things of that nature. But those cases dealing with those live victims, I think, and having to talk to the victims' families continuously and worry about what the jury was going to do when they were out that's one of the worst parts about, I think, being an attorney is just that stress, hoping that you did a good job, hoping that you did everything you could.
Anything specific you want to tell a room full of lawyers why you think you would be a good judge?
Yeah, practicing just in complex areas of law, doing trial work. I think total wise, I have probably over 120 trials to jury. That doesn't count trials before the court or any sort of that nature of it. But just being a trial attorney, I feel like I've seen it. My background of the just different diverse areas of law that I practice in, there is none that are unturned on that aspect of it. So, it's given me a deep appreciation for the significant impact that these judicial decisions have, not only on the individual themselves in a criminal matter or even a civil matter, but also it impacts the community as a whole. And so you have to take that responsibility with the utmost seriousness, thoughtfulness, and integrity that it deserves. And that's what I would like to bring to the judiciary is just this vast trial experience, the vast diversity in the areas of law at a complex level.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
We will next move on to the next race. Andrea and Michael,
Good afternoon.
here we are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, ma'am.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having us. I was born and raised right here in Polk County. I started as a prosecutor under Jerry Hill as well. I handled everything from appeals to misdemeanors to felonies. My focus was traffic homicide. After 4 years at the state, I went into private practice and did criminal defense for about a year. And then I got married to a military man. And during that time is when I started my civil work. I've done civil on both sides as well, a lot of insurance defense. I did employment and civil rights. And so I've handled a lot of them around all the areas. When I came back home after the military service, I opened my own firm. And there I did some family, primarily criminal defense and veterans benefits. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. We decided to come back home and raise our child here. And yeah, I've seen the importance of a well-run courtroom, and that's what I intend to do.
What do you think makes a courtroom running well as opposed to not running well?
I think a lot of it has to do with efficiency. In terms of a lawyer's perspective, if we're talking about the litigants, they want something that is also efficient, but we're going to be in the courtroom regardless of if it's this client or the next. But when it's someone whose life is on the line or business is on the line or whatever money is on the line, they don't want to be dragging things out for 2, 3 years. So I understand the value and importance of, running a case. I think someone mentioned this earlier, whether there's a legitimate reason to continue it. Sometimes when you have judges up there, they forget that there's coordinating issues, there's money issues, there are things that we don't necessarily have control over, but we're trying to move it along. But just keeping your eye on the ball and making sure that everyone has their say, but also moving it along. So ensuring that efficiency is probably number one.
Tell us your thoughts about the voir dire system and how that intersects with efficiency and the management of a court, of a courtroom.
The actual jury selection?
Yeah, do you think that needs to be shortened, lengthened? What's your views on that process and how you may affect it one way or the other?
You know, I've never considered a different way to do jury selection. I think the way that we have it now, at least in this circuit, which is where I've primarily done jury trials, I feel like we have a lot of leeway. So the only gripe that I have is that we don't get questionnaires with much time beforehand to kind of dive into the background or what is on them. But in terms of our flexibility and leeway and how we address each case and the dedication to, or the time we dedicate to each, I think is appropriate. Of course, I would hope that on a driving on a suspended license first time jury trial, we're not spending 4 hours questioning a jury. But if we have a first degree homicide, we may be there a few days or weeks. So I think the way that it's handled here is probably efficient.
Okay. Why do you want to be a judge? And try to give me an answer to that without the normal service to the community, want to help the community type of answer. But what's motivating you to decide I want to go through this process of having people vote or not vote for me to be a judge?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think I'm crazy some days after I'm campaigning, but I do think that our public and our bar deserve a judge that has a diverse background in the laws. Because here in the 10th Circuit, we don't run for a particular division. The judges here are cycled through each division, whether it's family, probate and guardianship, juvenile delinquency, civil, or felony cases. There are judges that we have that don't have that diverse background and they're learning it for the first time on the bench. So while I think we are all capable of catching up and learning, I do think the public deserves someone that has that real world experience on both sides, whether it's litigants, business owners, whatever it is, to actually step in and say, I know what these people are going through and just have that view and that lens.
In your life experiences, do you consider anyone in particular to be a mentor to you that has affected your outlook on the law and may affect your view of being a judge?
So I had to get my mentors outside of the family. I was the first one in my family to go to college, much less law school. So I've had to figure it out step by step and find mentors along the way. And those have been mostly colleagues, whether they are my trial partners from when I first started to a judge that I practiced for or before for numerous years. And I tend to call on all of them for different things. As we all know, certain people are specialized in other things or they give you better advice on different topics. So I've got a slew of mentors, and I think if there's a really pressing issue or one that I'm really struggling with, I'd probably ask 3 of them. But I think it's important to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And I think someone else mentioned this as well. Because we have a fairly small circuit, there's a lot of judges on the bench that we have worked with or practiced in front of or have a relationship with that's beyond the courtroom. So being able to be in that environment again and rely on those people again would be rewarding.
I think you said, I think I heard it, if I didn't, correct me, the last 4 or 5 years you've been doing veterans and creditors law?
No, the last 5 years I've had my own business. I've done primarily criminal defense, some family, and some veterans benefits. And when I say veterans benefits, it's specifically veterans pension.
Okay. How much of your time is divided between the criminal side and the veterans pension stuff?
Significantly, it's criminal defense. And if I had to put a percentage on, I just answered the bars thing on this, so I don't want to, say a different percentage, but I would say if I had
Mostly
to,
criminal.
again, it's about 90% criminal. And then the other 10 is divided between a little family and the veterans benefits.
You're doing that area law, you must like it, but what are aspects of that practice that you don't like?
Are we talking about criminal defense?
Yeah.
Who, well, there's something to be said when you're sitting beside someone who is facing life, and that is in your hands. So I do lose sleep over that sometimes. Uh, and understanding that this is something I do every day, it's not something they do every day. And there's going to be a lot of anxiety from several people that, even though I'm not a therapist, I am sometimes their therapist. So I have to break things down for them. I don't mind what one bit being that sort of educator for my clients to tell them this is the court system, this is what to expect, this is this court hearing, and breaking things down in that way. I enjoy that teaching moment for them. But as a lawyer, I feel like I am their best advocate, and I love that part. But the what I don't like is the stress. That's just something that comes with the job and the territory. But it's a
Is what it is.
sacrifice that I make.
I know you don't get to pick your division, but if you could, what division would you most enjoy presiding over?
Oh boy. I would probably lean towards civil as well. And I don't mean to echo Mr. Spath, but in the same they get some really interesting cases. Um, so probably civil.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your answers. And
Thank you.
Candace Dixon, you're next up.
Good afternoon.
Hi there. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have lived in Polk County since 1987. I went to Polk Community College, University of South Florida, and Florida Coastal School of Law. I started my career at the Public Defender's Office for 5 years. I worked myself up to felony division chief as well as misdemeanor division chief, where I oversaw and mentored 13 attorneys. I left the Public Defender's Office and went to Social Security Disability Law for 2 years. And then I opened my own practice in 2020. I ran my own practice for, I think, 3 or 4 years, and then I got poached by Leapfrog Divorce. In that time, I also worked part-time as a traffic court hearing officer for 2 years, where I resigned from both positions at Leapfrog and the traffic court hearing office to allow myself flexibility to campaign and reopen my own firm.
As a hearing officer, how do you think that experience will influence your work as a judge?
I think it's a very valuable experience because we would dispose of 500 cases on average per week. And it really puts you on the spot because you have to make decisions that you might not personally agree with, but you have to follow the law, apply the law. And you might imagine there's not a lot of case law in civil traffic court. So it was mostly statutory construction.
What surprised you, if anything, about presiding over traffic court and having to make judgments about people?
How difficult it is, and you think of traffic court, you think of it as not serious court, but it was certainly taken seriously by everybody who was in front of me. So, taking those cases seriously, being decisive, ruling with integrity and faithfulness to the law, it's experience I'm privileged to have.
It looked like, tell me if I'm wrong, looked like most of the recent past you've been in family law matters?
Yes, for the last year, I was 100% family law, and then my own practice is Social Security Disability, some estate planning, criminal defense, and family law.
And you were with for a while the Leapfrog firm?
Yes.
what did you like about being in a larger firm as opposed to a solo practitioner?
I liked having more people to discuss cases with, people with more knowledge than me, or discussing cases with people with less knowledge than me, particularly in the varying circuits, because everybody is different. So my expertise was in Polk County and Hillsborough County, and then we had an attorney out of Volusia County who worked in Duval County as well. So learning about the different circuits and learning from people who are more experienced as more experienced than me, and then just having more people to have lunch with.
Is the traffic court by Zoom or in person or a hybrid or both?
It's hybrid.
Um, as a hearing officer there, as it may influence some court running decision that you make, what did you find helpful about Zoom in making judgmental decisions, and what did you find unhelpful?
Well, the thing I found the most helpful about Zoom is the efficiency of it. So the officers that appeared in front of me did not always have to come to court and sit for several hours waiting for their cases to be called, as well as other pro se defendants that might live, got his ticket in Polk County, but live in Pennsylvania. So I would like to embrace technology moving forward when I become a judge.
How did you decide one day or one week to quit the practice of law and become a judge? What triggered that desire in your heart to do that?
Well, what mostly inspired me most recently is the traffic court hearing officer work, because I enjoyed it. And I felt like I was really good at it. And I really enjoyed um, weighing testimony, reading statutes, making decisions, uh, and having that experience.
What did you enjoy about it?
Well, as most of my cases, I'm meeting people on the worst day of their lives, or in the worst time of their lives, and it's a lot of stress that um, it's a lot more stressful. But with the hearing, I mean, the traffic court hearing officer, it was just I was just able to handle a case, dispose of it, and I didn't have to necessarily bring it home with me. And then I also liked hearing the testimony of the police officers and the lay defendants to be able to make those decisions.
The I have a good idea what your answer will be if you're talking to a room of non-lawyers, but speaking directly to lawyers, what do you think makes a good judge?
What I think makes a good judge is the emphasis on due process and the integrity of court, and the efficiency of the caseload.
Is what do you think about the voir dire process in terms of how you would manage it or not as a jurist?
Well, recently in Polk County, we made a change to where we used to have jury selection every Monday, and then we bring jurors back on whatever trial day they were scheduled for. So I believe that now they are pick and goes, which we pick the jury on the same day as trial. And so it might still be multiple days, but it seems to be a less inconvenience for the jurors. And then I think that that as long as both sides have ample time, or time they're comfortable with in picking a jury, I think that's appropriate. I think that we need to balance efficiency with due process to where both sides feel like they're treated fairly in the jury selection process.
You judges now are operating under all kinds of mandates in terms of schedules and deadlines and rules of what happens when. What in your view, how do you juggle those deadline requirements with the needs of the various parties in terms of them managing cases as they move through the system?
I mean, with the deadlines in mind, I would have to manage my caseload in a way that is keeping those in mind, but also making sure that no one suffers um, in the process because of those deadlines.
You've mentioned efficiency a couple times, and I'm curious to know whether or not there's any current processes or ways that Polk County judges are handling their dockets or trials that you think could be improved from an efficiency standpoint, and how?
I think that when we were going through COVID, we embraced technology much more, and we've kind of moved away from that, particularly in criminal court. So I would like more of an embracement of technological advances to make it more efficient for the attorneys and the defendants and plaintiffs.
Do you have anything in particular in mind in terms of efficiencies that would be that you would want to see implemented at a trial level?
At a trial level, I think in person is important, but if it's a non-evidentiary hearing, I think that should be more liberally granted for remote appearance.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
We have Group 13. Lewis, we struggled with whether it was Aguila or Aguila. So you're going to have to tell me now how to pronounce your last name.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Good afternoon, Alan. Good afternoon, everyone else. Thank you for having me. So I am Louis Aguila. Louis or Luis, which is my birth name, Luis, is also going to be on the ballot, which is why it was announced today. But I do go by Louis, but I go by Louis as well. I'll go by anything. And Aguila, there's no R at the end, but again, it's a common mistake that I'm totally used to. So no offense taken if anyone ever pronounces my name incorrectly. So again, thanks for having me. I'm Louis Aguila. I am running for Circuit Court Judge in Hillsborough County, the 13th Circuit, specifically Group 7. I am just about 12 and a half years into my career. I did 8 years at our local Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office, started under Mark Ober. I now am with the Attorney General's office, been there 4.5 years, where I do cold case homicide and missing person cases in larger drug trafficking organizations. During my time at the Hillsborough County State Attorney's office over those 8 years, I started from the bottom out of law school, worked my way up, had the benefit of having wonderful supervisors and mentors who taught me and cared for me, and handled cases as serious as death penalty cases that I sat not as a lead prosecutor on, but I did a 3-week trial where I handled the arson aspect of that case. I was in our sex division for 2 years. So from the middle to the late end of my career, or to the middle to the current day of my career, I've handled violence and crime on humans, if you will. From my personal life, which is more important really, is my wife and my 2 daughters. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I'm very active in the family life and their extracurriculars, including coaching their softball team.
If you're deciding where you want to go, do you want to continue in the criminal side of things, or do you want to run into dependency or estates or probates or civil? Where would you like to be a judge?
So I would be open to anywhere. Obviously, criminal is most familiar at this point. However, I don't shy away from any challenge. I have a strong belief that anything that I put my mind to and that I will be diligently prepared for, I can handle. So looking at civil for a second, I understand maybe some people's questions would be your lack of civil experience, which is totally fair. However, when you're looking at a judge and trial experience and living in a courtroom, that's what I've done in my career. I've done over 70 jury trials. I understand the importance of efficiency, of being on task, on time, and being organized, and not being afraid of making decisions. And those decisions are based always on the law and the facts before you, and listening to both sides equally.
What triggered your desire to move from the state attorney's office to the statewide prosecutor's office?
So I enjoy being in a courtroom. I like trials. I like litigating. At that time, our children were getting out of the infant stage, if you will, and I enjoyed my time at the state attorney's office. I still love everyone there. However, statewide prosecution, the statewide prosecutor at the time was Nick Cox. There was an opportunity presented to me where I had a little bit more of a life-work balance. For example, I could drop my kids off at school if my wife needed help and not have to be in the courtroom every single day at 7:45 to 8 o'clock. But I could still be in a courtroom. At the time, Attorney General Ashley Moody was starting her cold case unit, and I knew that was happening. No guarantees, no promises during my interview process, but I told myself, you know what, this is something that I'm interested in, and I want to bet on myself. And thankfully, years later now, I am a member of that unit.
Are are there any life experiences that you had that influenced your decision to become a lawyer?
So when I was young at University of South Florida, one of the requirements was to do an externship. And back then, I would go to a guidance counselor and have a big 3-ring binder, and I would, go through the paper documents to see what I was interested in. And state attorney's office was one of them. So after doing my research of everything that I wrote down, I applied. I did an interview, and I ultimately ended up being an intern there. And that was a huge life experience when you go back and look at it, because it really moved the needle on the trajectory of where I was going in life, unbeknownst to me. I enjoyed my time there. I was in juvenile I think it was for the whole spring semester, so about 4 months, and I learned a lot. I saw the difficulties each side has to do, specifically when you're dealing with juvenile offenses, and it kind of sparked my interest, which then led me to law school and then ultimately back to the state attorney's office.
You've been a prosecutor all your life. How should civil libertarians look at you in terms of what it would mean for you to be sitting on the bench deciding criminal cases? How do you think that experience would influence you? And tell us how you believe you can be fair to defendants when you've been throwing them in jail all your life.
So I'll split that question up in halves, if I may. So the first half, how would my criminal experience translate to the civil side? So as mentioned earlier, I have lived in a courtroom. I understand the importance of a judge being fair and impartial, calling balls and strikes. And if given the opportunity and if elected and being put in the civil realm, that's exactly what I'll do. I will always follow the law, and I'll apply that law to the facts. And equally as important, you treat both sides with respect. At the end of the day, when you're in charge of making decisions, whether it's from the bench or any other part in life, if there's two sides of the aisle, you're always going to have someone that is not going to agree with you. They may be upset with you. But what I've strived to do in my career, and I think it would translate to the bench, is you listen to everyone. You consider what everyone has to say. You apply what they have to say to the law or the issue that's before you, and you make your decision. And while one side may disagree with you, I believe that they can certainly respect you if you do it the right way. The second part of your question about putting people in prison, certainly I have done my fair share of that. However, that's not all I've done. When I started out in my career and the crimes were not as violent, if you will, I have dropped a lot of charges. I have given probation to a lot of people. I have given people second, third, and fourth chances. I have always listened to any mitigation presented to me. So, I understand it's a natural thought for humans to think prosecutor equals prison. However, not every case is created equal, both on the civil side and the criminal side. And I think as a prosecutor, and the way I've run my career is, you look at the facts, you look at the law, and whatever happened on a different case for the different person, that doesn't matter. Your personal emotion is always taken out of it. And I think all of those factors that I've been exercising for 12 and a half years would translate to the bench.
I think you're right. I think most people look at prosecutors as the big bad boogeyman.
Yeah.
What did you learn as a prosecutor about defendants that may surprise people?
That while there certainly is bad and evil in the world, I mentioned sex crimes and murders, and if there's sufficient evidence that happened, I mean, those are bad people, right? Raping a kid, but not all defendants are bad people. We all make mistakes. All 50 of us in this room have made a mistake in our life. Thankfully, it's not criminal related mistake, but a classic example is, I think someone mentioned traffic homicide they may have done in their past. Traffic homicide is a perfect example. I would, in my experience at least, nine and a half times out of 10, it's not a bad person. It's a normal person like you and me who had made a bad mistake. And that bad mistake cost another innocent person their life, and now is going to ruin their life because they're going to have to pay the consequence. But not all people that are charged criminally are bad people. And that's what I've learned.
Perfect. Anything in particular you want to tell a room full of lawyers that you may not tell a room full of soccer moms and soccer dads on a afternoon?
Well, I don't know if this is something I wouldn't tell anyone else, but it's the truth. Is you give me the opportunity, I will be fair. I will be impartial. I will call balls and strikes. And as I've done my whole career, my personal emotion doesn't matter. Quite frankly, my personal feelings don't matter. And you will always be treated with respect. You will always have somebody that's fair, that listens to you, that can make decisions, that is efficient. Someone that mentioned earlier, I think it was Mr. Spath, about large dockets. Certainly agree with that. You know, there's different reasons why different cases have to be continued, and there can't be a blanket procedure of you only get X amount of days or months before you have to go to trial. Not all cases are created equally. Now, as a judge, though, you have to have the other side of your brain, which says, okay, is this legitimate, or is this, they're just dragging their feet? So as a judge, I will listen to everything. I will be fair, and you can count on me to call balls and strikes and serve the community with respect. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sarah Peacock, and before I turn it over to you, in the interest of journalistic transparency, I have given some money to Ms. Peacock's campaign, so I want everybody to know that before I ask her questions. Ms. Peacock, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I know some of us are still there. Hang on tight. We're almost done. So my name is Sarah Peacock. I'm running for Hillsborough County Circuit Court Judge, Group 7. And I'm a Tampa native, born and raised here. I went to the University of Tampa, and then I went to Stetson University College of Law. Actually, while I was a student at the University of Tampa, I worked at the United States Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida. I then went on to law school. I interned with, again, the U.S. Attorney's Office, then the State Attorney's Office over in the Sixth Circuit. And my first official lawyer job was with the Public Defender's Office in Hillsborough County. And I was an assistant public defender for 6 years, trying everything from petty theft to homicide cases. And I moved on to practice at a law firm for a little bit of time, realized that that was not the area for me. Then I switched to family law. I don't know if that was still the area for me, but I did that for a few years with a smaller firm. And for the past, almost 7 years, I've done insurance defense work in-house. Aside from all that exciting lawyer business, I am married and I have 2 children. I have a daughter who is 12 years old and a son who is 10. And of course, that's its own full-time job being a mom. And I still live in Tampa with my family because I really like it here. And outside of work, I'm very involved in my church and very involved in different organizations to include the Junior League of Tampa.
Great. Let me ask you, if I'm a defendant and I'm looking at Mr. Aguila, I'm worried because he's a prosecutor. If I'm a plaintiff lawyer and I'm representing the plaintiffs, I'm worried like the dickens that an all-state lawyer is sitting on the bench. Tell me why that shouldn't concern me.
It shouldn't concern you because, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid when I started working at Allstate. We are all working towards the same goal. There's a case that's before us. I have a client to defend at Allstate, despite what people think. Sometimes that is an actual human being, not just the company. I've got a client to defend. Someone has a client that they are bringing a case for, and ultimately we are working towards the same goal, which is a fair and just result for the client. I think that any plaintiff attorney can talk to another plaintiff attorney that I've worked against, Mr. Spath being one of them, and know that I have a great relationship with the plaintiff's bar. I'm not out for the big company. I'm out for the fair and just result, whatever that may be. And I've had a lot of good conversations with many people on the plaintiff's bar, and they, I think, know me and understand my position that ultimately, at the end of the day, we're working towards the common good on the case.
The you said you didn't like life in the law firm. I'm curious why. What turned you off or left a bad taste in your mouth?
Well, I was a government lawyer for 6 years. Then I got plopped right into the middle of billable hours, and that was a bit jarring, right? I could handle the cases just fine, take depositions, that's easy for me, go to court, appear at hearings, and then it was always like you have to bill all your time, right? And so it was just not a good fit there. And that law firm in particular has this was now 8 years ago, 10 years ago, lost a lot of employees and things like that. So that firm itself, I think, was also going through a transition time. It was a much better fit for me to be working in a smaller firm setting, which is what I was doing in the family law realm. It was just a better fit for me.
The I'm the son of a lawyer. You're the daughter of a lawyer, but more importantly for this, you're a daughter of a judge. Um, to what extent should people think that you are going to be like or dislike your mother in terms of being a judge or ruling as she has or has not?
Sure. So we have the same name and we have a similar haircut, but we are two different people. We've had two different career paths. So this is not a situation where I've followed exactly in line with the career path of my mother or my father. I am my own person. I have my own personality. I have my own way of handling cases. I have my own relationships with both my colleagues and opposing counsel. So just because we share a name and a family does not mean that I agree with every single decision that my mother has made or will continue to make. I am my own person, and I encourage everybody to look up my background, look up my career path, get to know me personally, and not just associate me, excuse me, with my mom because we have the same name and hair.
Is has there been any particular life experience that has influenced your decision to move from private practice or from the non-judge side to the judge side of being a lawyer?
I would say that, I did not set out in law school to become a judge. That's not what my intent was. It sort of developed over a number of years in practice, handling jury trials and handling, court day in and day out. It developed that I mean, I know you said not to give this answer to somebody else, but I think it's a public service. I really do. And I know that being a judge is a difficult job. And I know that being a judge takes a lot of discernment, it takes patience, it takes grace, and it also takes experience, basic experience with the rules of evidence, experience with jury trials, experience with, administrative orders and all of those sorts of things. So it sort of started to develop after I'd been in practice for a number of years, that I was feeling led to try to become a judge. And frankly, it doesn't matter what area. I think I could be of service in any area on the bench. It was, of course, particularly convenient that some judges were retiring. So I had the opportunity to run for an open seat. And I really do think it is a service to the community. And with my background in various areas of law, representing so many different kinds of clients, that I'm well equipped for this position.
And from your perspective, having seen how Hillsborough County judges have managed or not managed the Supreme Court imposed scheduling deadlines and the trials and tribulations of that, are there any changes that you would want to implement as a judge in running your own courtroom and dealing with any of those stresses?
Sure. So obviously the judges are currently constrained by the ruling that came down from the Florida Supreme Court and the rules of procedure. But I think there's a lot of room to give a little bit more grace to the attorneys that are practicing in front of you. I think there's an opportunity to create more time for hearings to be held, so that people are able to have the motion heard, the discovery issue addressed, et cetera, as they move towards the ultimate trial date. So I think that there is room for some more time to be available on court dockets. I also think that, like I said, there needs to be grace given to attorneys. While there are thousands and thousands of attorneys in Hillsborough County alone, the judges generally know the people that are appearing in front of them or know their practices. So I think that the judges have the ability to make a judgment call as to whether, it's a legitimate time issue, time constraint, or it's someone that's continually trying to delay a case for not a good reason. So it's sort of a combination of giving grace to the attorneys in front of you, but also just opening up the docket for more hearing time.
How do you feel about in-person hearings as opposed to Zoom? Think they're important, not important, helpful, not helpful? Does it make any difference? What are your thoughts on that?
To give just the horrible lawyer answer, I think it really depends. I think it depends particularly on the area, right? A family law case is not a civil case, is not a dependency case, is not a criminal case, right? So you really have to think of what area you are in, and then you have to think about what is the subject matter of the particular hearing. If it's a simple sort of CMC for scheduling purposes, I think there's something to be said for having that held via Zoom so that someone doesn't have to drive 1 hour to spend 5 minutes in front of the judge to get a new hearing date, right? Conversely, if you are dealing with a family law matter and there are a number of experts that are coming in and guardians and things that have been involved in the case and they're going to be giving testimony, I think there's something to be said for being physically present in the courtroom to hold that hearing. So I really do think that it depends on the area and the particular case. Now, that being said, if the attorneys get together and they, are requesting that it be held via Zoom for some particular reason, I think there needs to be some credence given to that if the attorneys are agreeing to that. But those big hearings, huge evidentiary hearings, those are probably better being held in person to the extent that's possible.
I'll ask you what I've asked others. You've got a room full of lawyers. Is there anything you specifically want to tell lawyers about why you would be a good judge?
I alluded to it before, but I've got a background of experience that spans criminal, civil, family, a little bit of dependency just because of my work in family law and in criminal law. And that's important. And it's important because I personally have represented so many different clients. So I understand everything that's at play when you are appearing in court with your client, the client that you've prepared, the client that you've counseled, the client that you are fighting for. I have a true understanding of that, just having worked in so many different areas and represented so many different clients. So you can rest assured that appearing in front of me, I am going to know all of the work and the counsel that went into the case before you were in front of me. I'm running for judge because I truly want to serve my community, and it's the area that I think I can best be of service to the entire county.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next group is 13th Circuit as well. Nita McGuckin Alvarez.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. So like Sarah, I am third generation, born and raised in Tampa. I went to the Academy of the Holy Names. From there, I did my undergraduate at the University of Florida, and then I came home to go to Stetson over across the bridge. I have practiced now for a little over 17 years. I have spent the entirety of my career in private practice. I do a combination of family law, probate, guardianships, incapacities, estate planning. I've done a little bit of criminal defense, although I leave that to people I think more qualified than I. Since 2022, I have also worked part-time for the Office of Regional Counsel. I am the only attorney in Hillsborough County that represents alleged developmentally disabled individuals in guardian advocacy cases. Truth be told, that's my favorite job as a lawyer because I feel like, 99.999% of the time I'm actually helping people for, a common good, which is always a nice thing when you are a lawyer. It doesn't always happen that way. Aside from my legal career, I have a really sweet husband who puts up with me and has been right alongside me for the past, I don't know, 13 months on the campaign trail. I have two little girls, 12 and 9, and if you have kids, you know what that means for life outside of your job. So that's pretty much me, I guess, in a nutshell, in terms of history and family.
You said you represent alleged mentally disabled children. Is
Yes.
that what you said?
Yes.
Tell me the context in which that comes up and why you like that as much as you do.
Sure. So, in Florida, this group of lawyers knows that when you turn 18, you are legally an adult. And for some of us, that works just fine. For others of us that may have a developmental disability, some sort of mental disability, it doesn't work quite so easily. So specifically with regard to my regional counsel job and guardian advocacies, I represent children who are about to turn 18 or any individual who is over 18 and has a developmental disability that is outlined by the Florida statutes. So that could be autism, spina bifida. The statute still calls it mental retardation, intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities. And so if those individuals have a disability such that they need someone to be appointed as their guardian advocate, I represent the individual in that legal proceeding.
Okay. And why do you like that? That sounds like it's a tough stuff to deal with. What appeals to you intellectually or emotionally about that area of the law?
It is tough because all of my clients, and I say their families because the overwhelming majority is a family member who is asking to be appointed a guardian, but it isn't always the case. It could be, someone who works at the facility or a professional. But, um, you know, they're sad, but at the heart of these cases is someone who is here to help and make sure that the person with the developmental disability can have the most, I hate to say normal, but the most sort of normal life and be protected all while that's going on. So, it is tough, but at the same time, I think it's always doing good. And quite honestly, it puts a lot of things in perspective just for me as a human. And I remember to be grateful for the things that I have.
Like Ms. Peacock, your mother was a lawyer as well. Or your mother or aunt.
She was my aunt. Yep.
Your aunt.
I hate to correct you,
Kay.
but
Yes, Kay.
yes.
To what extent has and I think you worked with her for a while. To what extent has her life experiences affected you in terms of your decision to become a judge?
Gosh, I mean, how much time do we have? Um, so my intention actually coming out of law school was not to go into private practice. I was going to go and I was going to be an assistant state attorney, and that's what I was doing. Well, in 2008, or I think it was 8, 5, 6, 8, that was a great idea, except that the state attorney was on a hiring freeze. So it was one in, one out. So I went and I interviewed, and they said, fantastic, we'll put you in the pile. And when you pass the bar, let us know. We'll move you to the next pile. And so I said, fantastic. So I took the February bar. We all have to wait for all the weeks. And so during those weeks, my Aunt Kay, who had been a lawyer here in Hillsborough County for about 30 years at that time, said, listen, you've clerked for me during law school. You can't just sit at home, although it's a great idea. You can't sit at home and wait for your results. So come to the office, clerk for me, we'll just keep doing what we're doing till you pass. Well, I think at that point she realized this is a pretty great gig, right? I got this young girl who, can do sort of all the work that we all had to do as first year lawyers. And so that's what I did. And I think she loved it. And so when I passed the bar, she said, listen, the state might call, but you can't go anywhere. And so I said, okay, I won't. And so what that turned into was, um, 10 years of, invaluable time and experience. I mean, the first probably year that I practiced law, she took me like a dog on a leash to every single thing that she went to, depositions, trial, jury selection, everything. And she said, you're going to come and you're going to learn it all. And so that was huge for me. I am not ashamed to say that she taught me probably everything I know about how to practice law, how to be a good lawyer, how to be ethical. Um, and it certainly has played into my decision to be a judge, because I think that, specifically in our circuit, we have 5 judges that are retiring, and I think there is a present need in Hillsborough County for, experienced, ethical lawyers to try to run for these spots. And so that's, and she taught me that. So that's, part of the reason certainly why I am here in this position today.
Is that the area of judging you would like to handle? Dependency, guardianships, that kind of
I mean, sure. I would love to walk in on day one and be a probate judge because truthfully, it's what I love the most. I don't think that's going to happen. But I would love it. But I've practiced in a bunch of different areas. So, like the other candidates have said, I'm not afraid to just be put. And I'm certainly not afraid to learn. I mean, I think lawyers, whether we're running for judges or not, we're learning every day. If we aren't, well, I would like to meet you. I'm not afraid to learn something new if I have to, but sure, put me in probate.
other than your aunt, is there any one person that you consider a mentor in terms of your uh, legal philosophical outlook on the law or the judiciary?
I think, obviously I've practiced law here in Hillsborough County for over 17 years. And the fact that, my aunt had been here, well, she practiced for 40 years before she retired. I feel lucky to have made a lot of connections with, lawyers that have practiced for a long time, judges that, are still on the bench and that have retired. I don't want to single anybody out, but I feel like, I feel like I have a great support system and people that I think have done a great job in their time here that I look up to for all sorts of different reasons.
Anything you want to tell lawyers as lawyers that may not be particularly interesting to the normal Joe or Jane on the street, but you think might be helpful for us as lawyers to know about why you would be a good judge?
Well, I always love talking to lawyers because, lawyers know that other lawyers are just normal people, right? We're all just lawyers. Some of us want to be judges, some of us don't. I would ask you guys certainly to look at my experience and talk to people about me, right? I mean, we're all connected one way or the other, but I can only tell you that, as a lawyer, as a contemporary of yours, I will do my best to represent our circuit and to make fair decisions and, be ethical and also be compassionate because I think that that's important. I mean, certainly judges have to follow the law, but I think there needs to be, some compassion mixed in. So
Appreciate your time today. Thank you very
thank you
much.
so much.
Mr. Wimsett, Jim Wimsett.
Good
I hope I
afternoon. How
pronounced
are you
that
today?
correctly. Wonderful.
Good.
A musician too. Okay.
Those are my sons, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess. So my name is Jim Wimsett. I am a candidate in Circuit Court 13, Group 13 as well. I am currently I am a family law attorney. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm the last of 13 children. I have a big Catholic family. I went to a all Catholic boys' school similar to Jesuit called St. Xavier, St. X in Louisville. Then I went to a little place called Center College in Danville, Kentucky for undergrad. And then I was lucky enough to be able to go to Georgetown in DC for law school. After graduating Georgetown, I practiced in the DC area for a number of years, and then did a little bit of political work. And then when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next after that campaign, I was, Tampa is one of those areas that was, I had a volunteer who had a house down here, and Florida's a state where you have to take the bar if you ever want to practice. So I figured I'd come down here 3 months, take the bar exam, move back to DC, and then continue my career up there. And I moved down here. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the area. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with, the lifestyle, being outside all the time. It was just, it really spoke to me. So I've made Tampa my home, and I love it. I've married my wife, who's never lived north of Gainesville, and I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son that we're raising here. When I moved to Florida, I was doing mostly some real estate work because it was the height of the real estate crash, and then I was doing some med mal defense and nursing home defense, and then eventually, like a lot of people in that position, I went out on my own, started my own firm, and kind of the three big areas that I practiced were family law, personal injury, and employment law. And at the time, I thought it was very important to join, the organizations that were the preeminent ones in those fields. And so I immediately joined Tampa Bay Trial Lawyers Association. I joined, Florida Justice Association, Florida Association of Justice, the American Association of Justice, because, you all are organizations that provided so much resources and learning to an attorney who was going out on his own for the first time that I was very appreciative of that. But as my practice developed, I more and more became a family law attorney. That's what my passion kind of developed for, and that's what I started doing exclusively. And then eventually, came to work for Nancy Harris at Harris Huntender. She met me at an Inn of Courts event, invited me out to a lunch. About halfway through the lunch, I realized the lunch was actually a job interview. Freaked out, but then it ended up working out very well. I've been there ever since kind of the end of COVID 2021 period, and I absolutely love working there. And I love my job. I love the people I work with. I'd never ever thought that I was going to run for judge in my life. It was never a lifelong passion or thought of mine. But I was executive counsel for the family law section for the Hillsborough County Bar Association. I was an executive counsel last March, and one of the judges who was with us mentioned that there were 4 judges at the time. Now there's 5 retiring, and they kind of struck me because as a lot of you all know, or may know or may not know, the family law bench tends to get all the newest judges. And since their assignments are based on seniority, oftentimes, as soon as they have any seniority, they get out of the family law division and they're never to return. So there's a constant churn of judges in family law, and we get all the newest judges, and it's bad for our cases. We've had a few judges who've stuck around long term in family, Judge DePaul, Judge Ayers, Judge Tibbles, most significantly, who, we've seen how they've run their dockets and how they run their cases. And we see how our clients are treated and feel about how they're treated in the different courtrooms. And when there's a judge who's been there long term or who wants to be there long term, our clients can tell. If a judge is serving their time to get out to a different division, they can tell that too. And the cases that I take to trial personally are the hardest of the hard cases. They're the ones that just won't settle. So we need judges who are interested to be there, who want to be there, want to work hard in family law cases. Shouldn't take us 6 months to get a final judgment. I shouldn't be waiting until February 2027 to get a trial. So the reason why I'm running is not because I ever thought I was going to be a judge or anything like that. I see a need for judges who want to serve in the family law division long term. And that's what I intend to do. I told the chief judge if I get elected, keep me in the family law division my entire career. There's obviously no guarantee of that, but I don't know of a single judge who's requested to be in the family law division who hasn't been assigned there and able to stay as long as they wanted. So that's the long and short of me. And I really appreciate you all having me here today.
What are you? Okay, so you're a little bit unique because you actually want to be stuck, quote unquote, in family law.
Correct.
Why do you like it so much?
I like the practice of it because I am taking people from some of the worst days of their life and getting them, if not to, the end of the better day, to the better days, at least to where they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. At Harris Huntender, we have a philosophy of, protection without destruction. Our goal is for parents, if there's a divorce case and there's kids, we want both parents to not only stay close enough to go to both their kids' wedding, but to sit at the same table, to have that kind of relationship. And I've seen enough people that have gotten through those, and some you can't. Those are the ones you got to try, and some of those are hard. But getting people through that process has been something that I've enjoyed, since I've started doing it. That's what made me want to really concentrate on family. And again, like I see a need in family because these are some of our most vulnerable populations. These are people who are in an argument with somebody or a battle with somebody they used to be in love with over their kids, their money, and they're very, very hard cases. And I think it's also important to recognize that there is a huge pro se docket in the family law division. And so the judges have to manage that docket and run that docket. And that takes, a certain type of mentality as well.
In terms of the either the good things or the bad things that you've seen in Hillsborough County's family law courts, what would you do to change or improve the process if you're running the show?
Absolutely. One of the first things I would do is I would want to sit down with Judge Tibbles and ask him how he ran such an efficient docket. He had a docket that basically ran on a 3-month rotating trial docket that you could get a trial in 90 days. If you needed a trial, you would almost guaranteed to get one in 90 days, which was exactly how it should be. Right now, I had a colleague in my firm ask for a trial recently, and they were given dates in February 2027. Another thing that I think is very important to do is if I'm in family law and I set you for trial, I'm going to set you for 2 weeks later for a ruling hearing. If it's a matter that I can rule from the bench, I will rule from the bench. We can cancel the ruling hearing. But if it's something where we need to have a ruling hearing, I'm going to have the attorneys and the parties back within 2 weeks for a time for the court reporter or whoever they want to be there for me to give my ruling so that then the ball's in their court to get the final judgments. There's been times in family law that's too common we're waiting. People will go through a trial, a family law trial, where they've put in out everything they think about the other person who's the parent of their child. And they're in a temporary situation, both financially and with their children. And they're going to stay in that temporary situation until they get a final judgment. You go to trial, put it all out. It takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I had a case that took a year to get a final judgment. We're just now wrapping it up for a case that tried well over a year ago now. So these are the type of practices that can happen, and there are ways to do it because we've seen judges run it efficiently.
Do family court run in by Zoom? Do you think that's efficient or not in terms of being in person or by Zoom?
There are some things that should be in person and some things that should be Zoom. I think, like everybody says, in family, I think anything that's evidentiary needs to be in person. I think that we've seen through COVID and the post-COVID experience that things like case management conferences, non-evidentiary hearings are better handled via Zoom. I think that something in family especially is lost because of that, because a lot of times some of the deals, some of those case settlements that I would do would always happen in the hallway, when there's 20 attorneys around and you're talking to your opposing counsel and you're trying to just see what you can do before a case management conference. So Zoom loses some of that, but I still think that overall the benefits, given the time savings and the cost savings for clients, is so much more important. Um, so
Was there any trigger in your life or life experience or person that caused you to really focus your practice from these other areas of law that you seem to be had a lot of different stuff going on, but you suddenly focused really entirely on family law? Is there anything that precipitated that?
I don't know if there was a specific event. I think that it kind of, I found my calling. I found a job that I could have an impact on people's lives in an immediate way that I felt like I was helping. So my father has been a huge influence on me, and he's the one who I think, I would have to say is the one who kind of talked me through it and kind of talked through the different kind of law I was doing and got me to kind of say, family is what I've enjoying to do and what I really am getting satisfaction out and what I should concentrate on. He would have turned 100 on April 24th. He was a World War II veteran, fought in the Pacific. Just a great guy. He had a law degree, but never practiced law in his life. He was a businessman, but he said it was always helpful because it let him know when he needed to call the lawyers or not.
Is there any aspect of the family law practice that has disappointed you or that you particularly uh, dislike?
Uh, it can get too personal. I definitely think that. I think that a lot of times family law attorneys can sometimes take on the problems of their clients because, sometimes you're acting as a counselor, therapist, attorney, you're carrying a lot of roles and sometimes it can get personalized. It can get personalized between counsel. I think we're lucky in Hillsborough County that we have a very good and very strong family law bench. The HCBA has done a great job with their family law section, and it really encourages the camaraderie. But sometimes the personalization of family law can get a little hard.
I saw in reading some about you, you actually hiked the Grand Canyon rim to rim. What in the world possessed you
I,
to do that?
I did. So I grew up in a big family. So I have a lot of sisters and brothers who are much older than me. So I have a lot of nieces and nephews who are around my age. So one of them, we basically grew up like brothers and sisters. We just went home to different houses at night. So two of them is my nephew Dan, who's a year younger than me, and his brother Dave. And we try to get together occasionally. And Dan was like, "Well, what about hiking we're talking about doing a marathon or something." He's like, "What about the Grand Canyon?" I was like, "Well, let's do it." So, we all train. One's in Chicago, one's in Boston. I'm down here in Tampa. We all met in Phoenix and drove over there, drove to the South Rim, took the thing over to the North Rim, stayed the night, got up about 4 in the morning, and did the hike in one day, 26 miles. We got done about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, about 13 hours, I think. It was
Whew.
great.
Um, the what do you tell a room full of lawyers here that you may not tell the quote common folk, the non-lawyers, because they may not know or appreciate things? What do you have to tell to lawyers about why you would be a good judge in this area?
Judges are here to work for you and your clients. That's why we exist. We're here to do a job for you and your clients and to process your cases efficiently. We're not here to go on power trips. We're not here to run people's lives. We're here to deal with the controversies in front of us, and it's our job to help. I will have an open door policy at all times. Right now, I'm going to give you my cell phone number, so feel free to take it down. It's 202-550-9244. If you have any questions about my candidacy, please call me. If I'm lucky enough to get elected and you have questions about, family law or your questions that you just need to talk to me, I'm happy to talk to anybody. Again, I just ask that you all consider me for your vote on August 18th for Circuit Court, and I really appreciate your time today.
We're going to have to get you an 813 area code phone here sooner or later. You're still operating
I've
your
got an
post code
813,
phone.
but I graduated. I went to DC right in 2000, right when the cell phone started. So I've had it for 26 years. It's hard to get rid of it.
Hey, I've got a partner with a 404 address. I know
I
what you
know.
mean.
We get in the middle about these things. They're silly.
I'm not getting rid of my 202. So
Well, I want to this will end at least my portion of it, and I want to thank everybody for hanging in there for as long as you have, and for being as responsive and um, helpful to me. I know some of the things that the candidates have said has helped me narrow my focus on what I see good, bad, and indifferent in people. So I appreciate everyone's time. Courtney, it's all yours.
all right. Anybody have questions for anybody on our panel? I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat, but I do want to give people a couple seconds to throw any questions up in the chat. I think Alan did a great job of covering a lot of different topics today, but I want to give people a chance, if they do have questions, to go ahead and put those in the chat. Anybody going once? Going twice? All right, well, I'll give you another few seconds, but in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I mean that sincerely. Our judicial races are incredibly important. I think we've seen that today. The issues that get decided affect a lot of people in our community. And as we mentioned earlier, these are races that a lot of people are unsure in terms of which candidates to support. And as Alan mentioned, a lot of people come to us as attorneys or as leaders in the community and ask, who do I vote for? So I appreciate, first and foremost, our candidates. Thank you all for agreeing. I know some of you had to move some things around in your schedule to be here today. So again, thank you so much. I want to thank our co-sponsors, the Trial and Litigation section of the Hillsborough County Bar Association, and also the Legal Women Voters. These are groups that do a lot to help educate our community, to get information out to people who need it, so that we can all make informed decisions. If you guys have feedback, again, You can let us know what you liked, what you didn't like about today's event at executivedirector@tvtla.us. I think that's the email that address that would have come through for all of the event announcements. So that's Meg Huntley's address, our executive director. Again, she'll be happy to take any feedback. Sorry, Meg, I'm volunteering you for that. But if you do have any suggestions, but again, appreciate everyone who attended today. Again, I know taking time out of your lunch hour is, you know, not always how you want to spend your lunch hour, but it's important, and I appreciate you guys showing up and being engaged. So I appreciate it, and good luck in August, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.